All right, welcome everybody to the Romera Records podcast. Today we have on my wife Rachel. How's it going, Rachel?
It's going pretty good.
It's doing instead of going, huh?
It's doing great. Yeah, I'm doing
All
pretty
right.
good.
Today we wanted to talk about basically couples and speaking of that, so for our podcast with Rachel, I was thinking about doing like a series. So y'all gonna have to let me know if y'all be interested in that. You might have listened to Tom Bilyeu. Him and his wife have like a series. I forgot what was it called? Relationship Theory, or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they've got like a series of podcasts where they talk about like relationships or stuff like that. But I was thinking about doing that with Rachel, but just talk about relationships and all sorts of stuff. Because to me, there's a lot of people who talk about relationships, but they don't like go in depth, and that's something that I really felt like me and Rachel do quite a bit. And an honest opinion from us would be, I think, a very beneficial way for people to get involved into the podcast. So yeah, y'all gonna have to let us know, and we will definitely get down to that. But today's podcast, it is going to be about couples and having a child. That first kid, man. I know I've got a good bit of friends that are on their first and or second kid, and that's a crazy step. That's a step, man. First you get married, and then you bring another person into the world. I think it's kind of crazy. But we are not at that step. Yeah, we are not there yet. Yeah,
Parents keep asking.
Yeah, my mom has hassled me about it. And which is something that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how pressure from other people makes you think that you need to have a kid at the moment, and then also how it affects you to, I guess, have that kid and to be in that moment with the person that you're with, because it's a weird situation. You have your life going and you're doing what you want to do, and then it's also the person that you're with, what they want to do, and then you're deciding to bring a whole new human being into the mix, and that's a really crazy step. So one thing I really wanted to do was just talk about how we're going about it, me and Rachel, and then also talk about how what we've experienced with our friends and people that we know, how they went about having their first kid and how it's affected their lives. So first things first, I just wanted Rachel to talk about how she has encountered her friends or experienced her friends having their first kid, and give a little info on how she thinks that has affected their lives.
So personally, I've witnessed a few friends in high school have children. I don't know if they stayed with their significant other. Probably not. That's one thing that when you have kids as a young person, it's something that if it's not stuck to you, you're like, I don't need that kind of thing in my life.
Yeah.
I think there was one 16-year-old boy in high school that was like, I have a kid and I've had him since I was 15, and I got to get diapers, and I was like, that's crazy. I mean, like, I'm a senior. You're like, what, a freshman?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I feel like the woman definitely has a little bit more of an upstanding role when you're younger, because that child is either stuck to you or you have to decide, do you want to give it up? And that's a huge decision. It makes you look at life differently. So you got to either grow up fast or just put it to the side.
Yeah.
And that's rough. That's really rough. So, and I do believe in, like, pro-choice and things like that. So if you are one that doesn't feel like,
which that's a whole nother topic. The abortion, the people who are
Yeah.
against abortion, the people who are pro-choice. That's we might cover that another time. But go ahead. Sorry, I just had to bring that up.
I'm just saying, like, no matter what the situation, it's just going to be a big deal. Like, what did you feel like when you were a kid and you were like, I'm going to grow up and have kids at what age? Like, did you feel like you needed to have kids? Did you feel like you wanted kids?
Yeah, I always thought I was going to be married with like 2 or 3 kids by the time I was 25.
See, I thought 25.
Yeah, 25 is like the magic age. You're quarter of a century into life, and this is it. I've got a wife. I've
Probably be out of college.
I've got 3 kids. Like, I'm good.
Got my career.
I'm making hella money. Money's just falling from the ceiling. I can't handle it. That's what you think.
I traveled so much.
Yeah, you've traveled the entire world by the
Yeah.
time you've hit 25.
Yeah.
You've you've made the cure for cancer. Like, everything has happened by 25, and it doesn't work out that way.
No.
And that's a big topic of having a kid in the first place, is where have you actually reached that point in your life? Like, what do you think is the right time to have that first kid? Because when you're in high school, you have these aspirations of, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to travel, I'm going to go here for college and stuff like that. But then boom, life hits, and you're like, well, I didn't do this and I can't do that because now I've got a kid. And which a lot of people, you don't want to have a negative connotation to having a kid, because sometimes people, if they think about having, like, oh, so-and-so's pregnant, you're like, oh no. But it's supposed to be a good thing. It's supposed to be, hey, you're having a kid. It's supposed to be great. And, a lot of times people will say stuff like, they don't regret, having their kid and stuff like that. But it shouldn't even be a thought in the first place. Like, even though I had my kid young, I don't regret it. Like, that shouldn't even be a thought in the first place.
The thing I hear most times when people ask me about kids, it's not, they ask me, when are you thinking about having kids, or do you want kids, which is a nice thing to hear nowadays.
Yeah.
And typically I give the answer of, well, right now we're not really trying, and I don't really want one right now. Like,
Yeah.
I want us. I love us. This is
Yeah.
great. And I would love to explore us. And I want to see where us can go.
Yeah.
And that's something that when I express that to them, they're like, yeah, I had kids young, and I do wish I would have taken my time and did my thing. Mm-hmm. And then, they're like, do your thing. But at first they're always asking. And I do have friends that are like, I'm ready for kids. I've been trying. And I just think that's so much. I don't know. I love dogs. Those are like babies. So,
Which that's another thing. Like, so I just posted on Instagram, a video of me and RJ hanging out on the couch, and that's like our kid.
Yeah.
That's our step one of, after getting married, we have a dog. We have an animal who we have to, we have an animal that we have to take care of. So that's another living person. My back is itching. I have no idea.
There was a mosquito.
Was it really?
Buzzing around you.
Oh my God. That's scary.
He probably got you a few times.
Oh my God. Anyways, so
It was going to be like,
now always, every time I itch, I feel like there's something that's like, there's like a huge like tarantula like over my head.
I just feel like
that.
oh no, you're good.
Yeah. You're good.
Yeah, there's nothing up there.
But yeah, so bringing an animal into your family is something that's, that could be a step one if you say you're a little scared, you're a young couple and you're thinking about having a kid, but you're not sure if you want to have a kid or not. Get an animal. That will tell you if you can even handle a kid. Because some people, they think they're ready, but they don't even realize what the challenges of having a kid brings. So many things will change, like as far as your schedule, your work life, your love life,
your senses.
Yeah, your senses.
Yeah, like your daddy and mommy senses. Like, you know
I
those
was like,
videos
smell
where...
or
I
women
think
become
so.
like superhumans when
But
you
like,
cooking?
no, like that dad thing where you see those dads where the kid's like walking behind him and then trips and falls and almost hits their face on this really sharp object, and they're not even looking. They're not even looking at their kid that's walking behind him, and they just whoop, caught him. Or they just not even looking, and the kid flies by and he just catches the kid. Like, your senses change as a human being. I feel like, and that's something that probably kicks in when you have your kid. Like, there's a lot of people, I've also heard stories of, I didn't really know if I was ready until the child was here. Mm-hmm. And then, so I think that changes a lot too. And like, other than the friends I know that are like, I'm ready right now, you know, other people that don't know if they're ready, once that happens, they're like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good now. I have all that going on.
Yeah. One thing I did want to bring up was also, so we were talking about like the pro-choice, and I was bringing up just people not maybe even, or I was thinking about people even not being able to have a kid because one time my friend Hannah, she on Twitter, she had posted something about people. I think she said she felt awkward, or it might feel awkward asking people if they even can have a kid or something like that. You know, like, when are you going to have a kid, or, you know, something like that. That's, I told her a certain question that I like to ask people, which I even forgot what I said. It had something to do with like making sure that you tailor the question to not so much asking like, when are you having your kid, but I think I said, do you plan on having a kid? Because that's a bit of a different question than like, you know, when are you having kids? Because when is insinuating that you
can.
That you're assuming that the people can have kids. So if you, I guess, tailor the question to maybe if they can't have kids, you ask the question, do you plan on having kids? Because if they plan on it, but they can't, they can still answer that question. But if they didn't plan on it, or if they did plan on it and they can, then they can still answer that question. Or if they didn't plan on it at all, that gives a little extra to that question, because like, oh, we didn't even plan on having kids. So that's something you can talk about. So I think it's definitely something, how you ask people, a young couple, or even if it's an older couple and they haven't had a kid yet, what they plan on doing. And it's something that people, I guess, they don't really think about. As I said, I think the American way is, you date, you get engaged, you get married, and then it's that either, buy a house or have a kid. And it's just steps that we tend to take.
See, what I usually ask is, what are your goals? Mm-hmm. What do you plan on doing in your career and things like that? Because I don't really just assume the kid situation. And then goals. I mean, that just kind of says, I plan on getting better in my career, or I plan on switching careers, or I plan on taking my career mobile, and then having kids, settling down. Like, that usually comes up if that's in the situation. So I feel like answering or asking a more comment-based question, you get a little bit more of that person instead of like just the child subject. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Which the TED Talk that we were listening to earlier, the woman brought that up. She was just talking about how that shouldn't even be a thing, is assuming that people are going to have a kid. It's the assumption that is what their next step is in life, and that is who they are. But she was talking about how you don't just think of women as childbearers. And then, because if you think of women as childbearers, then that's something that you're giving an end to what a woman is. You're saying once she's done having kids, then it's almost like she's useless. And that's a terrible way to think about a woman, because I think women, number one, I don't think that they get credit for what they're capable of. Women have so many things that they can offer to Earth that I don't think people really understand. Like NASA. Like what's that movie?
I just know the chick's in NASA, and she's got this like giant pile of books, and she's like, yeah, this is my book.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson always
Yeah.
posts about that
He always
picture.
posts about
I'm
it.
thinking about that. Wow, what is that movie? It's all the black chicks and
Yeah.
the women
Yeah,
from
and
NASA.
it's I don't remember.
Somebody probably knows what I'm talking about. I'll probably think of it later. But yeah, like the fact that we always think about women in that role of, you know, giving birth, especially nowadays when we got people switching genders and, you know, men are having babies apparently now. So it's wild, but,
It's crazy.
but yeah, it's a crazy way to think, again, as I've said this for the 30th time, about the steps that we feel that happen in a relationship, going from the dating to the engagement to the marriage to the having the child. It's something that I think people need to just be aware of as far as what people are actually capable of in their relationship. First off, another thing that woman was talking about in that TED Talk is actually, I'll probably put a link to the TED Talk on YouTube, but the woman was talking about the difference in a vasectomy and a hysterectomy as far as the number of cases that it actually happens. So I was Googling how many hysterectomies women have had, and it said that 20 million women have had a hysterectomy. By the way, hysterectomy, tubes tied, same thing. I'm pretty sure the same thing. Vasectomy, all right, for the men not trying to have kids, the number was at 50 million. So that's a 30 million difference between females and males. That's crazy. 30 million people difference from having that. So to me, it sounds, the way that she was talking about the TED Talk and the way that number differentiates, it sounds like either women, I don't think women just don't want to do it. I think from what she was sounding in that TED Talk, I think it's more of women either being scared to admit that they want it, or that, you know, they're being denied from what she was talking about.
Well, think about like the doctors that you see in the doctor's office. They're usually, most of them, usually older.
Yeah.
So maybe born in the like 1960s, 50s, something like that. Women were looked at a little bit differently. They were typically the stay-at-home mom, you know, the dinner's ready. And I feel like there's a lot of older men, and maybe even like off of the Jubilee that we watched, the Jubilee episode where the guy was like, I believe in strong morals and I believe in being the bread maker for my family. He still views women as that way as well. So it's all around us. So it's a very common thought, I feel like, and it could become, I lost my train of thought. I just want to say that there are older doctors, and I feel like that's something that we're growing out of. Mm-hmm. So there may be only, you say, 20 million hysterectomies now. Mm-hmm. I feel like with the common thought, it's going to change pretty soon. And then another thing that I would like to say on top of, as far as childbearing, and if you don't want to have a kid, you could also adopt a child. There's at least 100,000 kids, I think, a year.
Yeah, it was. I think it was like way higher than that.
It's over 100,000, but I'm just saying 100,000 as a base.
I want to say she said 500,000. I could be off. It could be 100,000. I don't know. But
I feel like around 100,000. And that just seems like a lot of kids.
No, was she talking about America? Was it America?
Yeah, it was in the child care system.
Could be 100,000.
Yeah, I'm thinking 100,000. But that's just kids that don't have parents, that their parents have either given them up or died.
Yeah.
You know, in some horrific accident or during childbirth. Mm-hmm. Some people just aren't built for children, and they should have the choice to not have kids.
Yeah.
So it's just in my opinion, when I first started thinking about kids, past childhood, and I was a free thinker, I was like, I want to adopt kids. I see all these movies where kids don't have parents, and I'm like, why? There's so many people out here.
Yeah.
There's plenty of parents for this
Yeah.
for this kid. You don't need just one kid either. Like, you can adopt many kids.
The process of adopting is insane.
Yeah.
I've heard it's terrible.
My parents almost did it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they almost did it. I remember seeing all the papers on the table, and I was like, this is weird.
They were trying to give you up and get a new one. They're trying to trade you. Dang, that's wild.
A kid is gonna come out of this paper. But yeah, that's just something that I've always thought about. It's not really something that you even have to be worried about. Think about the other kids. Think about the kids that are going hungry in other countries. Visit another country and grab one of those children. Just like one of those dogs. There's a lot of starving dogs in other countries too.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, even with, bringing that up, it's, adopt, don't shop is what a lot of people talk about for animals, is basically it's saying don't buy your animal from somebody. Adopt an animal from an animal shelter, because that animal is alive and well and it needs a home. The people who are shopping for an animal, they're looking for somebody to breed an animal, and they're saying, hey, I'll pay you this money if you can make me some puppies. So basically, the adopt don't shop is trying to get people not to create more animals, is to, or not to what's it called? Not to advocate for people who are, creating animals and for that process. A lot of people make a lot of money off that. We follow the MVP bullies, and they put a ton of money into their animals because they're constantly breeding those large pit bulls. But I'm not saying what they're doing is wrong by any means, but there's a lot of animals that need help. There's lots of dogs. We see the dogs on the dodo, where it's like mountains of dogs that are just lost and strays, and they don't have homes, and they're breeding with each other. So there's puppies running everywhere, and they're just lost and don't have a home.
And then there's backyard breeders. I mean, there's people that are trying to make a quick buck off of puppies, and that's just that is something that my family used to breed a lot of dogs in general, and finally got them to see that it's not that good of an investment when they eat your walls. So and that's just something that you have the backyard breeders, you have the professional breeders, you have puppy mills, you have pet shops, and they're all trying to breed dogs. And then you have stray dogs. Well, there's so many different areas where you can find a dog. That's why I'm always for going into centers to find a dog, even if it's an older dog. I mean, it's just looking for a home, place to sleep.
And I think a lot of people would find it weird if you talked about humans that way. If you started telling people, don't have a kid, just adopt a kid. I think people would be like, what? What are you talking about?
Like, kid's going to be diseased.
Yeah.
It's going to have some kind of crazy eye.
It's not my kid. Like, okay, so what? It's still a family. Isn't that the purpose? To have a family? Even if it's not your DNA, like, okay, sorry.
Exactly. You can still grow that kid. You can still teach them morals.
Yeah.
You can teach them how to live under your roof. I'm sure that they would love to have a family of their own.
Yeah. Which me and Rachel, we were listening to the Tom Bilyeu podcast, and him and his wife, they decided not to have kids. I think they're in their late 30s, early 40s, maybe even mid 40s. But they talked about how they just decided that they don't want to have kids. And he said, well, both of them decided that because of their lifestyle. They're very, very busy people. They are constantly on the move doing stuff. And they said that a child would be very inconvenient for their lifestyle. And so me and Rachel have not made, I guess, like that 100% sure we're having a child, but that is the direction that we're going, is we want to have a kid. But I think it is, I think it just takes time for people to understand what really that entails, what it really entails of having that kid, the things that are going to change, as I said, people will talk about their personalities will change, like, especially for the woman, because her hormones will definitely be up and down, and she'll be going all over the place because she just literally gave birth to another human being. So it's completely understandable. So being able to just deal with that and to cope with bringing someone else into this world is definitely a big deal. The last thing I want to talk about is just, I want to make sure people understand that if you are a young couple and you are thinking about having that first kid, do not feel pressured by other people. If you see other people, on social media, on their Facebook, on their Instagram, talking about how much they love their kid, cool. Don't get baby fever. That is the most contagious, worst disease you can get is baby fever, because it is an emotional thing. It's absolutely emotional. And you might feel like you just got to do it, but think about it. Wait, it's never bad to think too much about having a kid, because what you're doing is you're preparing yourself mentally and physically for a huge decision in your life. So whenever you are thinking about this, make sure you think about it as much as possible. Ladies, if you want to get a hysterectomy, get it. Don't have a kid.
Try to.
Yeah, try as hard as you can and just adopt a child. You're saving somebody else's life. You're not saving a life if you create one, you're just creating one. But if you're adopting, you can definitely save somebody else's life, and you have no idea how much that's going to mean to that kid. And fellas, if you want to get a vasectomy and just don't have a kid. It's phenomenal birth control. Ladies, if you're tired of taking that pill or you got that patch or whatever.
A lot of the ladies definitely have issues with taking pills. Like they gain weight or they get pimples.
Yeah.
They have problems with their menstrual cycle even after they start taking it. Their hormones get out of whack even on the pill. There's just so many issues that can come up even with birth control, and that's why a lot of women want to do the hysterectomy.
Yeah. So, that pretty much wraps up this podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and we will continue to do these. As you can see, we got a different venue. We are at our house, actually. I know this looks like the Library of Alexandria, but it is not. This is the Henderson home, and we will start probably doing them just like this until maybe we change something up. We might get a table and do it like we did in Milwaukee. But I want to thank Rachel for doing this. First, I didn't think we could do this because Rachel is sometimes pretty hot-tempered with some stuff. But yeah.
I get it from my parents.
Right then, thank you for everybody tuning in, and see you next time.